Hi everyone, I'm Jeff Hall with the Westford Historical Society, and over the last several years I've done several editions of something we call Westford Tales. I sat with June Kennedy in her home and talked about how she moved to Westford and her experiences with the Historical Society and the contributions she had made over the years.
Yes, yes.
And then I'm with Shirley MacDougall today, okay? Shirley grew up here in the center, and she was a classmate of somebody I just interviewed, Mickey Crocker.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but we're getting a different perspective. When we talked to Mickey, when I talked to June Kennedy, she talked about what it was like in Parkerville. And Mickey told us Forge Village. But you've spent your entire life here on Boston Road.
That's correct.
Well, that's an accomplishment. Not all.
Well, I don't know. I always thought of myself as a world traveler, and it kind of irked me that I stayed on Boston Road all this time. Oh, well.
But I bet you've seen license plates from all over the world come down past Boston Road.
Oh, yes. On the traffic.
Different there today on Boston Road?
Oh, yes. A lot more traffic.
Well, we're taping this on April 27th. But before I begin taping, I wanted to wish Shirley a happy birthday. Just celebrated your birthday on Monday, okay?
Right.
And I won't tell anybody the age because I just don't do that.
I don't care.
Okay, she's 94 years old, folks, as she sits here today. Some of your background. Who are your parents, Shirley? And where were they from?
My father grew up in West Chelmsford.
Okay.
His father was a stonecutter with the Fletcher Quarry. As a young man, came here from England, as a very young man. Well, anyway, my father grew up in West Chelmsford, and he got a job with the Abbott Westford Company when it first began, and so moved to Westford when he got married.
Okay.
And my mother came from Nova Scotia. She was a young girl who wanted to be a nurse, and her uncle, who lived in West Chelmsford, needed some help with his ailing wife. So my mother came to help Uncle George Jackson.
Okay.
And I met my father at the church or something, I don't know.
I see. When did they move to Boston Road? Do you know?
1929.
They moved to Boston Road in 1929.
Right.
And you were born in 1928, correct?
Right.
Okay. So
I was one.
you were 1 year
That's
old.
easy math.
I know we talked earlier, Shirley, about your childhood. Let's start at the Frost School, okay?
All right.
The early years at the Frost School. Now, you go through the Frost School, it's grades 1 through 8
Right.
at the time.
And we walked to school every day.
And you walked to school.
We always walked. We never took a bus.
Did they ever call off school?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And you knew when school was called off because the fire horn rang. It was a siren at that time.
Yes.
And that went off at 7:30 in the morning if school was called off. So we would wake up and lie in bed and wait for the siren to blow. Hope it would.
Well, how did they clear the roads back then? And were there plows?
Oh,
in the
yeah.
1930s?
On
Okay,
trucks.
Yeah, on trucks, okay. At the Frost School, you walked? I remember you telling me, you used to walk, you were joined by a friend of yours?
Joined by what?
A friend of yours?
Oh, yeah. Margaret Sullivan, after a while, moved there. And we picked up Martin CV on the way, and a whole bunch of us walked to school, probably Harold Fletcher.
Okay.
And we walked to school. And we all walked home for lunch, and walked back again after lunch, and walked home after school.
You walked from the Frost School back home, and then you must have been fast.
Well, but the thing is, the only kids who could take a bag lunch were the ones who rode on the buses.
Okay.
because the teachers had to stay there in the classroom and supervise the lunch.
Okay.
There wasn't any cafeteria.
You said you had recess and a lunch period? Did
Yeah.
you go out to the playground? or
Yes,
What'd you do in the playground?
run around.
Run around? Boy, things should have changed. I was in the 1950s at the sergeant. That's what we did.
Jump rope and things like that,
Hopscotch?
probably. And we used to play marbles a lot.
Okay. Marbles.
And get marbles, and there were games for marbles. I don't remember the marble games now, but we did do marbles.
Yeah. The field in back of the Frost School, there's a baseball field there, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Was the baseball field being used at all?
Yeah, I guess it was.
Okay.
I wasn't paying any attention to that.
Then from there, let's see. You said you took piano lessons, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
from about second grade on.
Was it a couple of times a week?
Once a week.
Who gave you the piano lessons?
Different people, but to start with, I think it was the daughter of the minister of the Methodist Church in Graniteville,
Okay.
I think.
Okay. So she would just travel from Graniteville. But didn't you tell me there was one that came in from Lowell at one time?
Well, they came from different places.
Okay.
There was a Mr. Killam, and then there was George Wilson in Lowell. I used to go in on the bus
Okay.
and take my lesson in there at his studio
Where would you catch the bus?
in front of my house.
Oh, okay.
The bus came. It was wonderful. We had the buses came from Ayer to Lowell.
Okay.
And turned around and went from Lowell back to Ayer. And sometimes they went through Littleton, and sometimes they went through Westford Center and through Forge Village.
I see. I see. So that was your man. Did you ever take the train in?
No?
All right. I know I spoke to you earlier about, I'll get to it when we get to the your high school years, but the shopping in Lowell. I mean, if you were going in, say, at Christmas time to do Christmas shopping, is that where you went?
I don't remember doing Christmas shopping. I suppose we did, but I don't remember it.
I know that there were plays in Lowell, things such as that. Well, any particular teachers that stuck out in your mind from the Frost School?
Well, my first teacher in Frost School, first in grade 1, was Miss Blodgett. And the interesting thing is she then married and became Mrs. Morris. Okay. And my own kids had her. She was there a long time.
Yeah, it was
and Ruth Tuttle, of course. And Ruth Tuttle lived on Boston Road.
Yeah. Ruth Tuttle. The Tuttle family was quite
Yes.
a very well long-time family.
Yes.
There was a Tuttle girl who I graduated with in 1966.
I don't know that that was the same Tuttle, was it? I think a distant, maybe.
It may have been. Well,
Right.
it's like the Fletchers. I mean, they're all related to maybe fourth or fifth cousins.
The Tuttle we had, Miss Tuttle, never married.
Yeah.
She had a brother who lived with her, and he was a mail carrier, I think, or something.
You know where on Boston Road they?
Yeah, it's on the other side of the road from where I lived, and up one, maybe.
Okay.
This side of the Tavern Club.
This side of the Tavern Club. Okay. High school. Okay. Wait a minute. Before we get to talk about the high school, you told me you went roller skating, but you only told me you did it once. Sledding and roller skating down Forge Village Road and Boston Road?
Once.
Once. But still, that's, I couldn't
That was
see.
probably ill-advised, but we did it. I don't know that my mother knew it at the time.
Your brother had a paper route, didn't he?
Yes.
Okay. Didn't you have a wild adventure on your paper route back in 1938?
Well, with the hurricane, we were out delivering papers all during the hurricane.
Okay. Starting from your home with the newspapers, tell us where the route went.
Oh, down Boston Road,
Okay.
then toward Chelmsford on 110, as
Okay.
far as the Nixon family.
Okay.
and then back up to the Four Corners, and then down Carlisle Road, all the way down Carlisle Road and off to Concord Road, up to 110, and across 110 to the old Oaken Bucket.
Stop there at the Oaken Bucket. Okay? The Oaken Bucket is there. Didn't you tell me about somebody had to go deliver a paper to the Desmonds, and you all were standing waiting for is it Don Robinson or Jack?
Yes, Don Robinson was with me, and my
Okay.
brother Jack went down to Helen Desmond's with the paper.
Okay, delivered the paper to Helen Desmond, and then you left the Oaken Bucket. What happened at the bucket after you left?
Well, we were standing there under a tree to stay dry, and it was starting to rain through, so we moved. And as soon as we moved, a great big branch fell down right where we had been standing.
Unbelievable, unbelievable. And now you're headed back down Concord Road towards Forge Village, right?
We went down Concord Road to Hilder Street,
Okay,
then up Hilder Street to Flag Road, then down Flag Road to Forge Village Road, and then down to Mrs. Scott's,
okay.
and then back up and all the way back up to the center of town.
And when you get to the center of town, what was going on there?
The hurricane had been raging, and some trees were down, and the wires were down, and the electric people were out there with their big truck, and they said to us, "What are you kids doing out in a storm like this?" And we innocently said, "We're delivering the papers." Of course, what else?
Unbelievable.
And it was pouring rain, pouring rain.
I mean, did you have it, surely apparently there was no indication. I mean, like, no one came on and said, hey, there's a hurricane coming in. You just thought it was going to be raining.
It wasn't forecast.
No, oh, okay.
But the sky was yellow before we went, and it was kind of a strange feeling.
Yeah.
But we didn't know what it was. We didn't know much of anything. We just delivered the papers.
I was going to
Did what we were told.
The weatherman didn't either.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you consider how big that paper route was.
Yes.
I mean, the amount of miles.
I think it was 10 miles. My father complained about it afterwards.
Yeah.
And they sent somebody out to measure it and found it was much too long, and they divided it up afterwards.
Wow. Let me get, in the center of town at the time, did you, what, a church that you attended?
We went to the Congregational Church.
The Congregational Church. Didn't you have did you play the organ there?
I didn't play it at the church. I took organ lessons at the church.
Okay.
My father made arrangements with them to let me do that.
Was there an incident with you and the organ in the fire station next door?
It was at what?
An incident with you?
Oh, well, yeah. I got scared out of my wits. I was practicing one day, and I was playing the lost chord. And when you get to a place where all the stops are out and you're playing this chord, and this terrible noise happened, and I thought I had broken the organ. And it was 5 o'clock, and the horn went off at 5 o'clock here, right behind, and the church organ was right within feet. Scared me to death.
Did you, I guess, when you went shopping or your parents went shopping, which stores did you go to?
You mean in town,
grocery
grocery shopping?
Yeah.
Austin Fletcher's red and white store.
Austin Fletcher's. Now, Austin Fletcher's where Conley Insurance is today.
Yes,
Correct?
Conley Insurance.
Austin
Yeah.
Fletcher's.
Yeah.
Okay, the red and white store. And you didn't honor the other one that was the Wright store? Wright and Fletcher.
The other one was Bassey Watson.
Okay, there was a different owners over.
We didn't go up there so much. Well, and Austin used to call my mother on the phone and get the list of what she wanted, and he delivered it. It was pretty nice.
Not uncommon,
And my
though.
father wrote a check, and it was quite nice.
I've read residents of Graniteville did the same thing with the stores down there. That
Right.
you just call in, they'd have everything, and actually would deliver it to your house.
Right, right.
But you didn't spend all your time. Didn't you spend some time in Forge Village during the summer?
Yes.
Okay, whereabouts?
My father worked at the main office of the Abbott Wizard Company, and the Abbott Wizard Company owned 3 camps right next to Rogers.
Yep.
On what's that, Pleasant Street?
Yeah, Pleasant Street.
And there's a little beach there with with a couple of rowboats, and we got to use 1 week at either the lower camp or the upper camp.
Okay.
And we did every summer. Loved it.
Did you ever go into Ford Center at all?
Did we go where?
To set up, I mean, if you're on the pond, did you ever go into Ford Center?
Oh yes, my brother used to row the boat down there.
But there was an attraction I think you told me about. The Downeaster?
Oh, that the train went through. This was the first, I don't know, big special train, not a steam engine anymore.
Okay.
But
it traveled through at a certain time of the day, and you were telling me, Shirley, that you made a point of going over there, I guess, in the boat.
no, we just went this one time. It was the first day they were going through or something. My father was a bit of a train buff, and he knew about it, and so we were down there to watch it go through. And it just went flying through. It didn't stop or anything.
Okay, yeah. Although they did have a commuter rail that did run through Fort
It
Village.
was going south somewhere.
This was, I think it went from Washington, D.C. up to Maine or something.
Yeah, it was coming from Maine somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we get to high school, and I just happen to have with me the 1946 yearbook.
Very good.
And just kind of point out how things might have been a little bit different. The principal that particular year was a gentleman by the name of Albert C. Cook, who was also a teacher, correct?
Yes, I guess so.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And then there were 8 other teachers.
Yeah.
So 9 faculty members in all, which was with the Rodenbush at the time,
Yes.
okay? And there were 37 members of your class
Yes.
at the time. And I have the names of just some of those. I wanted to point out just because it's quite a class of 1946, along with the talented Shirley Byrne at the time, okay, who wrote, by the way, the farewell hymn that was
I guess
sung
I did, yeah.
as part of that, yeah. Were Bob Fitzpatrick, a member of the planning board here in town, Harold Fletcher. Harold had been the water superintendent for years and active with the fire department
Yes.
in town.
Yes.
My cousin Phil Hall, who also worked for C.G. Sargent, so was in the same location as your dad.
Right.
Bill Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
Bill was town moderator for years and served on finance committee.
Yes.
Mickey Crocker. Mickey Crocker, who was the town aide, very active with the housing.
She was Mickey McNiff at that time.
Mickey McNiff at the time, correct. And then, of course, there was Margaret Sullivan, who became Margaret Tebbets,
Yes.
mother of Ken Tebbets, who was responsible for much of what
Right.
we see here today at the...
Her father was the chief of police.
That's correct, yeah.
The whole police department, actually. Just about.
Yeah, the police department, there was him and I think John Cornell
Right.
was his deputy chief or
Yes,
something.
yes.
But that was it. That was the police department.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So there's a couple of members of the class. Talk a little bit about your experience in high school. I look at the listing of different events throughout the year. Football games and basketball games. Do you remember if they played the football games in back of the Rodenbush at the time?
Not football at that point.
Yeah.
We didn't have a football team until a young man named Bob Cross moved to Westford from Melrose, and he kind of got a football team started.
1940.
But we had a lot of basketball teams, and we played basketball in the gym, and during the intermission, my brother Jack used to set up music in the, there was a little...
On the stage?
No, he didn't do that. It was records he played.
Oh,
There's the little room there that he used.
Okay.
And we all danced.
Where were the spectators? There were no bleachers, so if you went to the basket, did you just stand along the side
I guess.
of the court?
Yeah, I don't think we had a place to sit.
And I know there was a stage there.
Yeah.
Okay, there was a stage there when I was there.
Yeah.
In 1960 in the 6th and 7th grade.
Right.
But so the basketball players, and I guess they had, that was probably the big sport. I know the football games just started, and they had a baseball team as well. How about the school play that year?
We did. We had plays.
It was called...
Mrs. Rochford was the director of the
Okay.
plays,
It
usually.
was called Dollars to Donuts?
Yes, that was one.
Yeah, and you were featured in that one, I know, because
I was always in the plays.
there was a picture of you right there, Shirley.
I like to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as a matter of fact, in the class Wills, you left your dramatic talent to another student, as I was reading.
I don't remember that. I haven't seen that for years.
Yeah. But when you were out there, starting in 1943, you said you worked at Kimball's.
In the summer.
Yeah, you were one of the Kimball girls, they were called?
Oh, yeah, right. But the thing about high school is this was during the war. Mm-hmm. And everything happened that was tainted by the war. Mm-hmm. In fact, my senior year, my physics class, I had 6 different teachers that year.
Wow.
Because the men moved along and went into the service or something. And of course, the boys in school went into the service as soon as they graduated.
So it was kind of a solemn period, would you say?
Well, not solemn so much as very much organized by it.
Yeah, okay.
It wasn't your regular high school. It was war, and everything was rationed, and
Yeah, okay.
and things were very tight. You couldn't go anywhere or do anything. No class trips, no anything like that.
I know that there was a plaque, in fact, we have it here at the museum, that honored all of those members, starting, I think, in the class of 1933, and up until who served in the military. You
Right.
probably remember that plaque from when it was displayed at the school, but we have it here at the museum. You also took part in the was it scouting for airplanes?
Oh yes, everybody did. Everybody had a time they did it. You go upstairs, up in the town hall, and watch for airplanes out the windows as far as you could see. And if you saw a plane, you called it in
Okay.
to some number we had, and they had to know whether they were expecting that plane there or not.
And it's a cupola that we see at Town Hall that's there today,
Yeah,
because the other one got blown down, I think, in 1938 in the hurricane. You might have seen it, but you were out doing papers.
right. My sister and I used to do a stint up there watching for planes. I don't think we saw any, but we were there looking in case we did.
Was it during the day that you had your...
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And what'd you do while you were up there? Just kind of hang out, or did you play cards, or...
Watched for airplanes.
What? Oh, good to know you were alert.
Well, we were
long were the
doing our
stints?
duty.
How long were your stints, Shirley?
I don't know,
An hour,
half
2
hour maybe.
Oh.
Not a long time.
Interesting.
My mother used to go up there and do a midnight time. I don't know why she did that, but she did.
But it was manned 24 hours a day.
Yep.
Did you ever see any planes?
No,
And all the time, okay?
I don't think so. I don't remember that we did call it in. We knew what we were supposed to do if we did, but we didn't, never plugged it in, that I recall, anyway.
when talking to Mickey Crocker, she kind of expressed the same thing, that it was wartime. And
Right.
even though, those experiences you have in high school that you say you treasure, and you can look at these things here, like the basketball and the football games, it just was different because
Right.
there were some leaving, they were graduating or leaving before they graduated.
Right.
And some weren't coming back, Shirley.
Yeah.
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 And that must have been, had a long time effect on, I know that my family, my Uncle Donald was captured by
Oh.
Michigan Action, 1944, and escaped.
Wow.
Escaped and, made it back and all of that. But the impact it had on the family
Oh, yes.
at that time.
Oh, yes. And the girls used to write letters to the guys when they went. They would leave school and they'd say, will you write to me? Because this is before cell phones and before email and any of that kind of thing. And so the only thing they had was mail. And we all wrote letters to the guys that were in the mail.
Did you write to a Mel Downing?
Yeah.
Okay. So Mel Downing, this came up at one time before Shirley, but this Mel Downing, actually, did his family come to Westford during the summer?
They had a place over on Groton Road
Okay.
where they grew vegetables.
Okay.
And I think his father used to take the vegetables into Lowell and give them to people. I never knew much about that.
Yeah.
But
So how did you end up, did you know him personally?
Yeah.
And write letters to him? Okay.
yeah, he was his family and the Sullivan family were very close.
Oh.
And I met Mel at Sullivan's, kicking around the backyard.
Okay.
And I wrote to Mel, and Mel wrote to me. And many years later, not too long ago actually, I thought, I never threw these letters away, all these people I wrote to, and I thought, this is kind of silly to save all these years later. So I decided to send the letters back to them, thinking they might enjoy seeing them after all these years. So I sorted the letters, and I found that every one of them had died.
Okay.
Except maybe this Mel Downing, but I didn't know where he was. I never heard from him since 1947, and I didn't know where he was. And I reached out to the Sullivan family to see if anybody there knew where he was. Mm-hmm. And Margaret's daughter, Sandra,
Yep.
got very interested in the whole thing, and she looked up on her computer and found a Mel Downing in Florida, 91 years old,
Okay.
and would I like the address? So I wrote him a letter and said, if this is who you are, call me. And he did.
Oh, okay.
And he still does. And I hear from Mel every week or two.
That is
Yeah, he's 90, what is he, 95? He's going to be 96 this summer.
Well, it says in the class grinds, which is kind of like what they leave. It says, I'm reading from the 1946 yearbook. To Shirley Byrne, we give the little black book so that the names of your ever-increasing male acquaintances won't skip your mind. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Shirley?
I haven't seen that for years and years. That's funny.
You, as a Kibble girl, of course, you saw 110. Anything about 110 back in the 1930s or 40s that kind of stuck out in your mind? I mean, you had the Elms down there, Paulie's. There was a Paulie's, which was built in 1941, opened and closed for a long time. But there was also a little pizza place, a spaghetti place where, I think the Hafner's is today. Michelson's Farm, the Oak and Bucket. Did you frequent that at all?
No, we just went from home to Kimball's, and that's it.
Yeah.
For 110.
How did you get back and forth from Kimball's?
I don't know. I think my father or my mother drove me, or maybe my brother Jack when he has his car.
Okay.
When he was home. I don't know. I don't remember. And I asked my sister. She said she remembers going to Kimball's on a school bus after school because she worked there too. And but I don't. I never did go on a bus. So I don't know.
Ice cream cone, how much did it cost?
What is it?
Ice cream cone, how much did it
A
cost?
cone?
Cone, one cone.
Maybe about 12 cents.
And a small cone was 9 cents?
7 or 9, I forget which.
Okay. A Kimball special?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that was 75 cents.
Okay. I'm just thinking, today they're about $10.
Yeah, well,
And you mentioned buses, you didn't take the bus. In the advertisements for the 46 yearbook, compliments of the Westford bus drivers. E. Miller, that was Edward Miller, Ed Sullivan, B. Hilders, H. Wright, and Mr. and Mrs. W.R. Shea. 5 bus drivers, 5 buses through the whole town.
for goodness sake.
Yeah, for goodness sakes, I guess, things are a little different we see today. Also, let's see, one of the things I did want to point out, though, from that class as well, is that you had advertisations, and any of these places strike a bell, you know, when they went out and got advertisements. As I said before, Shirley, many of them were from Lowell, Cherry and Webb's, but you did have a few, Drew's, Kimball's, Bill's Barbershop in Forge Village, J.A. Haley's Oil Company, Abbott Westford, of course, who your dad worked for, Jim Knowlton General Store.
Yeah, that was where Bassy Watson used to be.
Okay.
And
okay.
Jim Knowlton then bought that out or something, I guess. I don't know.
And you could reach them by telephoning 4081, Guadalajara Cooperative, George Reese Clover Farm. Do you remember what Wright Trucking out of here, the center of town here?
What about
Wright Trucking.
Wright Trucking,
Yeah.
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 Across the street from the town hall.
Yeah, I guess they carried a lot of the produce that was produced here in town into Boston, so.
Yeah, right.
1950, you graduated from the Lowell Normal School. So
Right.
you went to school. Did you commute on the bus every day back and forth?
Yes.
Okay. So you didn't stay in Lowell?
No, no. And the bus sometimes would stop in front and wait for us to come running out.
Okay.
My sister and me.
Yeah, and you were probably in, I know the old building is just done over at Lowell this past year. They've renovated the place. I spent a year down there too in that building.
I haven't seen it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's, I know that they just did it over. And then you went to teach in Springfield for a year, right?
Yes.
What grades were you teaching?
What is it?
What grades were you teaching?
First.
First grade. Okay, so you're, well, of course, they focused on elementary school out of Lowell. How long did you teach?
1 year, and then I got married.
Okay, so we talk about your husband, Stephen. Okay?
Yes, all right.
His family moved to Westford, okay, in 1939. Of course, his father, Alistair
Yes.
MacDougall, was very well known in town as a historian.
He was
owned a lot of land at one time or
He was
another.
a county extension agent
County extension agent, very, very busy.
in Concord.
Certainly left his trademark on this place here, the
Yes.
Historical Society. But Stephen went to Proctor Academy in Andover.
Right?
He was an avid skier there, correct?
Yes.
Which later on got him into the ski tow business here in town.
Right.
He was a gunnery instructor during the United States Navy during World War II. And it also said that your family spent your summers up at Robbins Island in Essex, Mass.
Yes.
Okay, did you have a camp up there? Or?
Yes.
Okay. So you'd leave and you'd spend your summer months there when the kids got out of school?
When the kids got out of school, we stayed there until school started in the fall.
Oh, okay.
Then we came home.
Were you, during those years, you were a stay-at-home mom, basically?
Yes.
Did you get involved in PTA or any of those activities, any of the civic things, anything with the church suppers or anything like that?
When we were in Westford, I sang in the choir for years and years and years. So,
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. But the ski tow. Apparently, your husband with his skiing. How did this all come about, the ski tow?
Well, he, at the time, his father was very involved with the Ashby Middlesex County camp.
Okay.
They put a tow on that hill up there in Ashby. And then his father said to him one time, you know, you spend every Sunday up in Ashby, why don't we put a rope tow on the hill here in Westford? So we did.
Just so people know what this is, it's actually with Blake's Hill then, correct?
Yeah, and it's grown up. It looks awful now.
Well, but you would say, where you take the entry into Kings Pine, if you went across from that entryway into Kings
Right.
Pine and up that hill,
Right.
that's where the ski tow was.
Yes.
In the late 50s and into the mid 60s, would I be correct? 'Cause
Yeah.
I can remember it, Shirley. I never skied,
Yeah.
but I just remember it. And why did you shut it down?
There were a few reasons. One was Neshoba opened up,
Okay.
so there was a place for the kids to ski. And then the other thing was, right at that time, there was a lot of suing happening. And then, too, Cynthia, who had been such a big help teaching the kids how to get on the rope and all that, so she went off to college.
Oh, okay.
And that's part of it.
Yeah.
All a lot of little reasons.
Cynthia was in a very talented class out of Westford Academy, too.
She was what?
She was came from a very talented group of people.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That'd be my class. I just figured I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, throw that right out. Yep, she's
Yeah.
great girl.
Who sold the tickets?
I don't know who sold the tickets. Whoever.
I'm just wondering.
Maybe she did, I don't know.
Yeah, it just, did the traffic have anything to do with it? The increase in the traffic on Boston Road?
There wasn't much traffic at that time.
And we're going back to the 1960s. And
Yeah.
I lived here where the cottage is for 3 years in the 70s, and I used to back out to go to school in the morning, back out onto Boston Road.
Yeah,
Don't do that today. You take
no,
your life.
but you could then.
I'm going to kind of wrap things up, Shirley. I'd like to talk a little bit your reflections of Boston Road, okay, in the center. After your kids were out of school, you went back and used your degree again, correct?
I was the homebound tutor
Okay.
and worked for the special education department of the Westford school system.
And you worked in Chelmsford as well, didn't you?
And I was what?
Chelmsford?
Well, it was kind of a funny thing. I was in and out of the schools and the kids who couldn't go to school for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And at one point, I had been working in and out of Nabnasset a bit, and a Korean boy moved to town and was in Chelmsford, and they didn't know what to do with him. He couldn't speak English.
Oh.
He couldn't understand English. And here he was in school, and they said to me, is this anything you could help with? And Steve and I had adopted Cynthia, who came to live with us from Japan when she was 8 years old. And she couldn't speak English either. So I wasn't afraid of it. And so I went and helped this young man, Myung Soo, I think his name was. And then one of the teachers in Nabnasset's husband was on the school board in Chelmsford, and they had a Korean family move in. And would I be willing to go help with that? And so that's when I started in Chelmsford, and I was in Chelmsford for 20 years.
And once again, our paths cross here, Shirley, because I was in Chelmsford for 38 years as a teacher. So some of those students that you worked with, I'm sure, were some of mine. We can trade stories sometime later on.
That could be, yes, that would be interesting, yeah, right.
Okay, going up Boston Road, we see Kings Pine today.
right.
Remember what it was like before Kings Pine?
Oh, yes. And the whole square area of the ski tow used to be a pasture.
Okay.
And had animals and stuff. And when I was a kid, it was Joe Sullivan had cows there.
Yeah.
And then my father-in-law, later on, had some Scotch Highland cattle. We had 13 of them, and they were all over in those various places, eating the weeds and grass and stuff and keeping it down. But now it's grown up because it needed to be mowed, and
Yeah.
George Fletcher used to mow it, and George decided not to do it anymore or something, I forget what.
How about the Tavern Club?
Well, that was very busy when we were growing up because our house was basically across the street from the Tavern Club, up one. And the ladies used to come and have their program and their tea. And
Okay.
my sister and I very often were asked to help out with some of the music we did.
Did you know May Balch?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Did you have a lot of contact with her?
Not a lot, maybe, but her nephews lived in New York City, and they used to spend the summers
Okay.
with the Currier family. And May Balch is a relative of theirs. And
How about the Hildreths? Charlie and Alice Hildreth, they were town clerk on Boston Road.
right,
Yeah.
there were 2 houses down from us.
Yeah. Did you have much contact? I know we used to go there for our fishing licenses.
Well, if we needed a birth certificate or something like that, we would go to their house, but otherwise we didn't have anything to do with them.
It was an interesting place to walk into. It was just,
I don't recall.
I just remember there were papers all over the table back in the 60s, and
Yeah.
she knew where everything was.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, the firehouse and the cottage you see out here, which we're right now in the museum, okay?
Right.
And how about Doc Blaney? Did you have any contact with Doc Blaney?
We had nothing to do with Doc Blaney, really. I think we had to go there one time to get a paper to go to camp or something.
Okay, but other than that?
Nothing to do with Doc Blaney, no.
Okay. So if somebody gets sick, what did you do?
Dr. Forsley over on next to the town hall.
Okay, Dr. Forsley. There was Doc Cowles was in town at the time, too.
It was what?
Dr. Cowles.
Oh, he was the Abbott Westford
He actually advertised
doctor.
here in the,
Yes.
in the book. How about the old schoolhouse that was right at the corner where the tavern where the Lampsons lived across the street here? The #1 schoolhouse, the building was there.
That was torn down.
Yeah,
I remember Ben Prescott lived there for a little while,
okay.
but that was torn down, but I don't know anything about it.
The mansion, the Jack Abbott house. I don't
Yeah.
think a lot of people know that it was there, but it was a mansion used by the Nabnasset Playhouse with
Yes.
actors would come out and stay there during
Yeah.
the summertime when they
And pretty much wrecked it.
yeah, and that's why they tore it down, I guess.
Well, my father-in-law owned it. Alistair MacDougall owned it,
Okay,
and he's the one that tore it down
all right, yeah. I've seen pictures of it.
because it was in disrepair
Yeah.
and it needed a lot of work. And I wasn't involved. I really don't know.
The library, do you use the library at all?
The library? Yes, in fact, my sister and I worked there 2 or 3 afternoons a week after school. We would put the books where they belonged.
Who was your boss?
Oh, May Day.
Mayday.
Oh, yes. And that's where my brother and Donald Robinson used to do their homework at night. They would go to the library and do their work there.
Don Robinson became lived in Nabnasset later on. And I know that he was active with the fire department down
Yeah.
there. Very active with the fire
Yeah.
department.
Well, he was a good friend of my brother Jack's.
Yeah, well, he was on the paper with you.
Oh, yeah, that time he was, yeah. Yeah.
Town hall, I know that a lot of the activities, suppers and dances and things like that were taken out of town hall, correct?
Yes. Had a beautiful floor for dancing.
Yeah. And so your dances were held there rather than at the school?
Yeah, some of them, the graduation ball and apple blossom dance and things like that.
Your sister, who ended up marrying a Weber from Littleton, we remember Weber florist over there.
Right?
Speaking of apple blossom, she was the queen in 1949.
She was the representative of Westford in the Queen's Court.
The Queen's Court, and the queen was
Jackie Ewing
out of Littleton, correct?
of Littleton, yes.
Well, I remember you get a more clearer picture of the center of town and growing up at a time. Any particular memory, great memory you have, or one you'd like to share with everyone?
Well, actually, Westford Center was a very quiet place to grow up. There was nothing going on.
Okay.
And there was no place to go, nothing to do, no place to hang out. It was very quiet. The families did whatever they did themselves, and there were mostly families. And but it wasn't like it was in Forge Village.
Or Graniteville.
Or Graniteville, or
because of the mills.
no,
Yeah.
it wasn't like that. It was just all private groups of people and nothing happening.
But it was a good place to be, correct?
I guess so. It's the only place I know. I don't have much to compare it to.
Well, you made it to this far, so you.
Yeah, I've been here for a while. Right.
Well, Julie, I'm going to close it up. I appreciate you coming on and sharing
Well,
those experiences.
whatever it's worth.
And let me wish you a happy birthday, as I said. You
Well, thank you.
recently passed, and many, many more, I hope.
Well, we'll see.
Okay.
We don't have much control over that.
No, we don't. Thank you again, Shirley.
Well, thank you.
And thank you for tuning in, everyone.